Lebanon's agreement with Israel is a betrayal because it's going forward with a deal that rewards the occupier and betrays its own citizens and the resistance which has defended Lebanese territory against Zionist Nazis. A few days ago, in a marble-floored room at the U.S. State Department in Washington, D.C., ambassadors representing Lebanon and Israel put pen to paper on what Marco Rubio called the beginning of the beginning. What was signed was not about peace. It was the beginning of a new and potentially permanent subjugation of Lebanon. It's dressed in the language of sovereignty and it's draped in American scam. I'm angry, and most Lebanese people are angry. First, the Israeli occupation and denigration of Bilad Hashem is stronger than ever, even amidst the world's witnessing of the devastating genocide in Gaza and the destruction of Lebanon in the last few years. Let's begin with the most basic fact that the fanfare in Washington is obscured. Israel continues to occupy approximately 1/5 of Lebanese territory, and the framework agreement signed on June 26th does not mandate its withdrawal whatsoever. Not now, not on any fixed timetable, and not unconditionally. Just read the document. It speaks of a sequenced process in which the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, will restore sovereign authority over Lebanese land pending the verified disarmament of non-state armed groups. In plain language, Israel leaves when Hezbollah disarms, and Hezbollah is not disarming. Hezbollah has flatly refused to do that. Its leader, Naim Qassem, called the agreement humiliating, shameful, and a surrender of sovereignty. And he's right. Israel has been handed a self-renewing justification to stay in the country forever, and Hezbollah has been regrouping and rearming for the last year. And the resistance is not only legal, but seems more justified to people than ever. No matter how you come to terms with their form of resistance, it's their villages who are being destroyed by Israeli AI, and their homes turned into rubble. Most people can't imagine staying in one place their whole lives and then being forced out of it because of violence. Being displaced and forgotten leads to people taking up arms and fighting back. Israel's defense minister confirmed that Israeli soldiers will remain in Lebanon until Hezbollah is disarmed. And then their finance minister had already gone further, suggesting that Israel might remain in Lebanon beyond disarmament because, in his words, quote, they need defendable borders. Not only can Israel attempt to genocide and erase an entire country south of Lebanon, then push hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees into Lebanon's borders, and then bomb it and invade Lebanon for decades, it also needs its manufactured borders to be safe. On June 24th, just 2 days before the signing, Katz declared that Israeli forces would not withdraw even if the U.S. demanded it. These are not fringe voices. These are cabinet ministers of the government that just signed this agreement. And these government officials just reveal Israel's interpretation of the deal. It's a security arrangement for Israel. It's not a withdrawal framework for Lebanon. This is Israel winning in ways that are damn right embarrassing for Lebanese people, because it is an agreement that rewards impunity. This framework did not emerge in a vacuum. It was negotiated while Israel was killing Lebanese civilians. I was there on March 2nd, 2026, when hostilities resumed. More than 4,000 people have been killed and over 12,000 wounded by Israeli attacks on Lebanon. When the June 2026 ceasefire was agreed, Israel continued to bomb Lebanon after it was signed. What message does this send? That Lebanon can be bombarded, occupied, and then offered a diplomatic document that legitimizes the occupation's continuation? Before we know it, Israelis will be in Beirut clubs and on beaches. They'll have summer homes and buildings constructed on top of where Southerners used to grow olive trees. And the U.S. did not broker this deal from a position of neutrality. It's also Israel's primary military and financial backer, and it's been throughout this war, and way before this. To ask Washington to serve as Lebanon's guarantor against Israeli violations is like appointing the arsonist to fight the fire. It's a scam, and we're being scammed. My friend Karim Safieddin of the Tahrir Institute for Middle East Policy observed that the framework leaves the Lebanese government with very little agency. The result is a deal in which Lebanon traded away political ground, including implicit normalization of relations with Israel, in exchange for a promise of Israeli withdrawal that has no binding timetable. It's tied to a condition Lebanon can't even fulfill. Point 9 of the agreement commits Lebanon to a, quote, rigorous performance-based program, enabling the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, to disarm all non-state armed groups. Let's be honest about that. This can't happen. In early March, the Lebanese government banned all of Hezbollah's military and security activities. It could not enforce that decision. It attempted to expel Iran's ambassador and gave him a deadline, and Tehran simply ignored it. The likely outcome is one where Israeli withdrawal is deferred indefinitely, while Lebanon remains trapped between occupation on one side and internal paralysis on the other. The risk isn't only that Israel stalls on withdrawal, but that the agreement itself triggers a domestic confrontation over who holds ultimate security authority in Lebanon. The framework, in other words, could be the seed of civil conflict, not the resolution of an external one. Sometimes it seems, at least to me, that the point is to routinely destabilize Lebanon. This is what normalization without justice looks like. We should call this agreement what it is. And those in Lebanon who have long opposed normalization with a state that has invaded their country 7 times, killed thousands of people, and currently occupies their land are right to feel that something irreversible has just happened. There is a difference between ending a war and normalizing relations with a country that not only started it, but has a record of genociding your neighbors. The Washington Agreement uses Lebanon's exhaustion and weakness to extract political concessions that go far beyond what the military situation required. Behind all of this diplomatic language are over 1 million displaced Lebanese people, which is more than 20% of the country's entire population. They've been forced from their homes by an occupation that the Framework Agreement now codifies as the benchmark for withdrawal. Israel has issued evacuation orders over approximately 2,000 square kilometers of Lebanese territory. Those people can't just go back home. Not until conditions are met that by Israeli officials' own admission may never be met. Meanwhile, on the day this framework was celebrated in Washington, Israeli warplanes struck towns in southern Lebanon. The same day, the Lebanese Ministry of Health had to continue updating its casualty toll. None of this is to say that Lebanon had easy choices. Its leaders have faced enormous pressure, a weakened state, and an adversary with overwhelming military superiority and unconditional American support. An agreement that demanded cessation of hostilities as a prerequisite for any political discussion might have been defensible. But what Lebanon has signed instead was a document that Israel's own officials have already said will allow them to remain in Lebanon for as long as they deem necessary. Israeli Zionists are expansionists, just like the Nazis were. They want Lebanon's southern region to be their northern border. They want more and more and more because none of this has ever been about religion. It's about consumption and urban development. This is not peace, and I have a hard time believing Hezbollah and other pieces of the resistance will ever stand down. The protesters who filled the streets of Beirut on the night of June 26th were not merely followers of Hezbollah or servants of Iran. There were queer people there. There were progressives and communists and people from every religious sect. They were Lebanese citizens who understand viscerally what it means to watch their country's sovereignty be traded away at a negotiating table in Washington, D.C., while their villages burn. Their anger is legitimate. Their fear that this agreement will calcify occupation rather than end it is well-founded. Lebanon deserves peace, not the beginning of a beginning delivering it to right-wing fascists in MAGA and the Likud. Long live the resistance, and may we never stand down or stop fighting back.